Hey, Damon. Hey, congratulations on this new show you're a part of, Tiny Pretty Things.
Thank you very much. I'm very blessed and thankful to have it.
So I guess what we could start off with a very easy question. Why were you attracted to be a part of that ensemble of Tiny Pretty Things?
Well, initially it was actually just another audition, you know. Thankfully after a little bit of, success, you get to the point where you get so many of these auditions, especially during pilot season, you're like, okay, you can't really get attached to anything too quickly. But once I was like, testing for it and, doing a little bit more research on the project, that's when I started to kind of fall in love with my team and the production and the character. They also allowed me to bring some of my Southern roots to the character, which is I never get to do. I never. It's rare sometimes that I see a Southerner that isn't dumb, and so I was like, this will be great. And so that was one of the biggest things that I really loved about the character, and at least, and why I fell in love with the show too.
So when you mentioned Southern roots, because when I was watching the show, there was a little bit of that Southern accent. When you're
Yeah.
talking to me, I don't sense that accent. So what is the real you?
So this is the real me, and Caleb's accent is actually what my accent used to be. My entire family is from North Carolina, which is where Caleb is from. He's from Fayetteville. And so every day, and the thing about like Southern dialects is that not everybody is literally just, well, I was over there and on the thing over there. And, it's not so, I guess, hyperbolic. It's a mixture of different accents, especially in Tennessee, that come together. And some people lose it, especially when you're in the arts community. Some people lose your accent, or it just comes out in certain words. So every day I would call my grandmother and my mother, who were like born and raised in the South. My grandmother was born and raised in Statesville, North Carolina. Um, and so I would call her, and then I would imitate my Uncle Chuck just a little bit, because my Uncle Chuck, which is her brother, is countryer than corn on the cob. And so that's how I kind of was like giving that little homage to them.
Well, that's a great thing, and I noticed those things in the show. So
Well, thank you very much.
so during your process of research for the show, did you manage to read the book?
I was reading the book. I read about 7 to 8 chapters of the book, and then we started rehearsing. And my brain doesn't read and memorize lines very well, so I have to kind of read one thing at a time. And so I never got to finish it. I'm actually picking reading back up, so I'm probably going to finish the book pretty soon. Actually, I'm probably going to pick it back up. But I did a lot. I did a lot of research on the storyline, but I didn't want to spoil anything too. I didn't want to know, especially with like the whole murder mystery aspect. I was like, I don't want to spoil it for myself. I can't, and they don't want us to know yet. So I didn't want to I didn't want to spoil anything for myself. But I did read a little. I read about 7 or 8 chapters of the original book.
Now, for those people who don't know, like myself, who didn't have a chance to read the book, your character Caleb, was Caleb in the book at all, or did they create this character for the show?
Not that I saw. I didn't see him at all. So I think he did. I think they did create the character for the show. Um, I have to continue to read it, just in sometimes they change the name of a character, that, or make a minor character major. So who knows if or people who read the book would know, but I don't think he's in the book originally.
So, how would you describe Caleb yourself, and how did you want to portray Caleb to make him your own besides the accent?
Well, I had to think about where he comes from. He comes from the South. He comes from a military family, so he's very controlled. So that's kind of how I would describe Caleb initially. He's very controlled um, until he can't any longer. So it's almost like the trauma of that you see in in veterans kind of passed down to him, whether because he has his own trauma that he's going through. And a lot of times with veterans, especially like Vietnam veterans, they always say they won't talk about it. Like you hear that a lot, and that's kind of where he was. That's where Caleb was, and that's kind of how I approached it. Is like there's always that initial trauma that's going on in the back of his head, but he won't, or just at all times, and he won't talk about it. He's also a very loyal person, and he believes in loyalty. I think that might be his code is loyalty. Um, even when he is, has a sort of, I guess, a quarrel with one of the other students, there's a moment when, even though that's happening, he goes, "You still have to go do this thing. It's the best thing for you." So he's very, it's like that. I may not like you, but what's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. So that's that's at least what he believes.
Now, I've seen the show. You did actually have a little quarrel with that other student, for most of that season.
Right.
Could you tell me about developing the chemistry with that actor on set? Because sometimes you kind of feel bad in the way of bullying another
Right.
person, right?
Right. Well, so I didn't know if you'd seen the show, so that's why I was like, don't give away too much. So Michael Rosen is what I like to call my husband, and I'm straight. So Michael and I, we got along so well. I literally just saw him 2 days ago. I'm going to see him again tomorrow. I love that man so much. He and I, when we all met in Toronto where we filmed, um, he and I would go on these just tangents about the theater world and Broadway and the community, because that's where we come from. So I always felt bad about what I was saying or what I was doing, because I truly love that man. And literally after every take, I was like, I'd be, and saying hurtful things. I'd be like, "God, I'm so sorry." Like literally as soon as the camera cut, I'm like, "I'm so sorry." He's like, "Boo, it's fine." And I'm like, "I know, but Jesus." So yeah, the chemistry, and that was kind of how it was with all of the cast. Like we were, and I've said this millions of times, and I will continue to say it. This cast is my family, and we were a big family, and I miss them so much every day.
Of course, I don't want to reveal what happens during the season, but you do have some interactions with Lauren Holly herself. Could you
Yes.
talk about acting along with such a veteran actress?
So I was like slightly familiar with Lauren Holly, and because when you get your cast list, you always research them and see if because for me, I always want to tell, if I've seen their work, I always want to tell them like, "Hey, I love the work you did in this," and like I think that shouldn't go unsaid. So I researched her, and it turns out I knew a lot more about her than I thought I did. I knew a lot. And then I went, "Oh, okay, got it." So when I finally met her, she's a gem. And my family knew who she was too. So they were giving me information. And I was like, "Wait, you all know, like, where have I been?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I didn't have cable for like 8 years." Got it. So, you know, acting alongside Lauren Holly, she's got 3 kids. So she is a mom to all of us. And she knows that. And she is always there to give us guidance, to give us advice, to, you know, be the, because, you know, she is a veteran. She's been in the game for a while, and she knows, she's been through the ups, the downs, the uglies. And so she always is trying to prepare us for that, for the good, the bad, and the ugly. But she also, she learns from us too. You know, she is like, she learns about social media from Brendan, or you know, what this slang words from Alex, or, you know, it's amazing. And I also, I learned how much focus she has when you're doing a scene with her, and it's wonderful. And I love that. I love working with someone who is giving, is better, is more experienced, and is just giving me so much to like react off of as an actor. I'm going, oh yes, like I want to match that just that energy. So that's my experience with Lauren Holly, and I love her to death.
Wow, it sounds like you learned quite a bit. Now, one of the things that that I think this series actually did was showcase your talents, because especially your dancing talents. For one, I've heard that you know, you could sing, you could dance. I didn't know you could do ballet, you could do jazz, you could do hip hop. You basically did everything.
I did I do ballet, or did I like get by? That's my thoughts on it, because I'm also surrounded by just, I mean, you saw it. You saw how incredible they, like, my dance, or our dancers were. They were beautiful. So for me, ballet was never my forte. I grew up in, like, you know, hip hop and tap, and then got into jazz, and then got into tap. So doing ballet, I had to really, really, really work hard, and I'm glad I did. But I appreciate the compliment.
So how much choreography and training did you have to do in preparation for this type of series?
I did a lot. I About a week before the first audition, because it was a self tape for me, and they gave us like 6 combinations to do, and they wanted us to improvise, and I was petrified, because I didn't grow up in ballet. I grew up in, like, you know, ballet, you're supposed to stand tall, and I grew up, you know, doing this. You know, everything is the opposite of what I learned. I felt like I was an airbender trying to learn earth. You know what I mean? It was just like complete opposites. And when I got the part, I wanted to make sure that even if I was coming in not as strong as I wanted to be, at least I could come in with my body being as strong as it needed to be. And then I got there and I said, I have a lot of work to do. And I tried. I really did. We had ballet every day in you know, during the season, and I was trying to go as much as I could. If we weren't in ballet, we were, you know, in rehearsal. And so, and we also had an amazing physical therapist who was keeping our bodies in shape and keeping it healed, or healthy. I mean, so yeah, there was a lot of work that went into it, and I'm glad that I did it. I learned a lot about myself in the process too.
Excellent. The funniest thing that I wanted to remark about the show is I have never seen so many conversations in the steam room in my entire life, and everyone
Neither
has to
have
be
I.
naked.
Neither have I. But I also know I'm, I thought it too, you know. But then I started to remember. I started to actually, our physical therapist actually had his own personal sauna at his house. And every day after he would work out, he would go into the sauna with as less clothes as possible. And so I was like, okay, I that makes sense to me now. Um, And in the ballet world, I I, I remember in like when I was in the arts, and you had quick changes, and sometimes you were off on gigs, and like you'd have to find a, a corner in I guess like a what are those big buildings? I don't know. They do like conferences and stuff in them. I can't remember what they're called. They're just it's just blanking on me. But like you have to find a corner in a giant building to like change clothes. So it wasn't too far fetched now that I think about it, because after a workout, it's incredibly healthy to go into a sauna and stay there for 15-20 minutes. Um, does everybody do it that nude? Who's to say? I never went to a ballet conservatory, so I have no idea. But it makes for good television, I guess.
It certainly does. And if people want to check out half naked people in saunas,
All the time.
this is the show. So, for yourself personally, when did you know that you wanted to be an entertainer?
I knew that I wanted to do it as a career my freshman year of high school. Every year, my school would take a trip to New York. They would go see, our musical theater department, because I went to a performing arts school. They would go to New York. They'd see shows. You'd, go around Times Square. You'd stay, on the Upper East Side or Upper West Side or wherever we were. And I remember going to New York for the first time in my life, and my eyes, I felt like I didn't blink the entire time. And then we went to go see Billy Elliot, and right then I saw it was the end of Act One, and there's this amazing tap number, and there's lights, and there's sound, and there's subwoofers that vibrate your heart, and I went, that's what I'm gonna do for my life. I was like, that's what I want to do, because I had grown up, doing everything. I played sports, all of them. I danced. I, you know, sang a little bit, and then I found musical theater, and I was like, this sounds really cool. Like, I should try it. And so then I, started doing acting, and I fell in love with it. But when I went to New York and saw Billy Elliot, that was the moment I said, I want to do this as a career.
You did quite a bit of musical theater, right?
I did. That was my life for a long time.
So how do you like your adjustments onto the screen? Do you ever miss musical theater?
I do. I love doing TV and film. I really do. I think in the back of my mind, I always saw myself wanting to do that, but I was like, it's not for me. I'm just like, I'll get there if I get there. I never expected it to happen as quick as it did, but I do miss musical theater a lot. But I'm such like a heavy musical person. Like when I go to the theater, I want to feel something. I really want to like hurt a little bit, or I want to laugh my butt off. Um, or I want to be impressed by I guess that's what it is I want to be impressed by how everything is going, or what they're doing. For Newsies, it was the choreography, and Billy Elliot was the choreography. For Next to Normal, it was, the story and the voices and the power that they were doing. The power they were giving through song and through their words, So I'm just always looking to be incredibly moved when I go to the theater, and I want to give that feeling to other people. That's why I wanted to do it in the first place, was to, to move people, but also inspire them to like follow their dreams.
Absolutely. And one more thing about your talent, because like in baseball, they like to call a multi-talented player like a five-tool player, but for some unknown reason, you could act, you could sing, you could dance. You're a musician. You are working on your debut album currently at this moment.
Yeah, sort of. I've been, I worked on a debut album like 8 years ago, and then I never picked it back up. Now that since the pandemic, I've actually been working a lot, and I think I am going to do an album. But when I do, I want it to be something that represents me and I'm very proud of. So I've been doing a lot of studying about jazz music. and where that came from and how it affects, today's music. And turns out jazz music affected everything. It's pretty much how we got pop music. So I want to learn about that, and I want to, because I've always been a lyricist in some way, shape, or form. I love writing, which is weird because I was terrible in language arts class. So I've always loved doing it, and I think I might put one out either next year or in 2022. But I really want to give it the time and the love that it deserves, and I want to give it a lot of attention.
Absolutely. And for your own fans, they don't know that you not only you could do multiple dance styles, you play a lot of different instruments too, right?
I do. I play, well, if it depends. If you count the bongos and congas, I play a total of 6 instruments, and I can play the B flat scale on a clarinet. If you don't, then I play 4 instruments because, some people put bongos and congas in the percussion section. So I'll put just real, like, comfortably, I play 4 instruments, which are guitar, piano, bass, and drums.
Excellent. Well, one more question just to wrap it up. Where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years from now for yourself? What are your own life goals?
Unfortunately, I've lately been thinking about, or recently been thinking about, like, my career and where I want to go in my career. And during the pandemic, I've kind of really started to self-assess. And because 3 to 5 years, I'll be 30, and that's pretty weird to me, because I've looked like I was 16 forever, or I've looked like I was 12. Like, there was no in between. And so I think what I want to do is I want to have my own house. I want to be able to create music or whatever I want to do. I want to be a little more comfortable, and I want to be around the people I love. That's what I want, especially in about 5 years. I just want to be around the people I love and the creativity that I love.
That's an excellent answer. Well, hey, Damon, hey, thank you for this conversation. I know I've taken a lot of your time already, but
Please.
I'm crossing the fingers for a second season, because if people actually watch the show, there are bigger and better things for Caleb in the second season. We could tell.
Oh, I agree. And thank you so much. Thank you for having me, truly. And a lot of my time, 15 minutes? Like, absolutely. Get out of here. This was so easy. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. We'll talk again on your next project.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.